All right, so inside Trump's head, we are stomping around with our galoshes and we run into none other than Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner, who was sat right next to, on Bibi Netanyahu's left, when Bibi Netanyahu was addressing the Israeli parliament, and who I think many people thought had disappeared, because in effect he has disappeared in that he was very present during Trump 1 and then made it very clear he wasn't going to be part of Trump 2. So can you take us back?
Yeah, I can, because I know Jared and have spent some amount of time with him, and I actually first met Jared on the campaign trail, and
I thought you were going to tell me you knew Jared when he purchased the New York Observer, which was that pink, very funny newspaper that was part of New York Life at one point, certainly when I arrived. And Peter Kaplan was his mischievous editor.
Know him. I mean, he was just the kind of he was not a person you would have any interest in getting to know at that time. I mean, he was a lightweight, just a rich guy who had way overpaid for this this newspaper. I think, as I recall, he bought it for $11 million, which was approximately $11 million more than it was worth. I knew the editor of the paper at that time, a man by the name of Peter Kaplan, and so the only thing I knew about Jared Kushner was what Peter said, and Peter was spread it all over town that he was one of the great lightweights, Jared Kushner of all time.
Well, he's not as lightweight now. I mean, perhaps hard to predict what would have happened to him.
I think that's one of the interesting developments. But Jared, who married Ivanka, and then had the job in the campaign, the kind of interesting job of the family monitor of Donald Trump. I mean, the family believed, Donald Trump was running for president. This was ridiculous. And they had, as best they could, to protect the family brand.
And wasn't he also thought of as the digital genius? That this was 2016, it was the sort of peak Facebook moment for campaigns, and Jared was someone who understood this in a way that other people around Donald Trump and Donald Trump didn't quite understand. The power
I'm not sure that was true, and that certainly was not true at the point in the campaign when nobody thought that this was a real campaign. I mean, this was just a publicity exercise on Donald Trump's part, and the family was just trying to somewhat limit the embarrassing lengths that he would go to attract publicity.
Right. Oh goodness.
So,
oh goodness.
And then later, when they actually preposterously and certainly unexpectedly got the nomination. And yes, Jared was one of the people who were seemed to have some, or at least claimed to have some expertise, or knew who to call to mount a hurried digital operation. Now, Steve Bannon was involved in the campaign, and Steve Bannon at that time would have said that Jared knew nothing about anything. But in fact, what Jared was doing was assembling a list that, curiously, a political list, which would be very valuable, in which Jared himself would come to have an ownership stake in, which it leads to another theme of the Trump political.
But hold on a minute. What do you mean by list? A list of what?
Politics is founded on basically politics is founded on having a list. Your strength as a politician is about the strength of your list.
Do you mean list of voters or?
Yeah, list of
voters. Okay.
List of voters, list of people who are guaranteed to support you, likely to support you, all of those things. So you're looking to make a reach out efficient. One of the things you don't want to do is campaign to people who are never going to support you, for instance. So at any rate, they developed this list, and the list actually becomes incredibly valuable, not only to Trump, but commercially valuable. Think of, all the money they've made selling those hats, just as a for instance. And this is extend this theme. Jared really represents the idea that governing should work for the people who are doing the governing as well as the governed. So all along that theme of Trump trying to profit from the presidency, of the people around Trump trying to profit from the presidency, in very not just direct ways, but without much pretense otherwise. And Jared came to represent this. What would be the word? Certainly, this impulse, this theme of the presidents, of the Trump years, the grift,
or the opportunism. Because what's so fascinating about looking at this deal and then understanding what Jared has been doing since he left after Trump won, is just this sense of, and he keeps talking about him and Steve Witkoff being deal guys. That it's all very well having diplomats.
Also that came out of a New York Times story today, and it's always very interesting. Jared who was one of the great leakers in the first administration, has turned himself into a kind of favorite of the press, because he's. Especially the New York Times seems always to have a soft spot for Jared Kushner.
Well, it's hard not to have a soft spot for the son-in-law of Donald Trump. But I'm fascinated by the way they present themselves, or Steve Witkoff and Jared present themselves as deal guys, sort of saying, the previous lot have tried to do this, which is a totally fair point. Why would we try and pursue peace in the Middle East using the traditional diplomatic channels? Because that hasn't worked. We are deal guys. We get to yes first, and then we think about all the details after.
I would look at this. Yes, you can say deal guys. You can use that language, or you could say these are grifters.
Well, I'm using their language, right?
I know that. But even to understand, what deal guys and grifters have in common is following the money, and Jared recognizes, and I think in a way that a lot of traditional diplomats. And political figures might not, that everything in the region is dictated by money. The Saudis, what is their motivation in the end? Money. The Qataris, what's their motivation? Money. The Emiratis, what's their motivation? Money. Not the Palestinians. That is not their motivation. Antipathy to Israel, that is not their motivation. Their motivation is money. Show me the money. And Jared has been incredibly good at speaking exactly to that. And on top of that, their idea of the money and who has the money and how you exchange the money is always a family thing. They are more comfortable dealing with families, because that's what they're used to, and that's what they deal with their own families, than they are in a let's call it just a simple free market world.
Oh, that's fascinating to think about the families and the tribes of the Middle East, and then the Kushner tribe and the Trump tribe, and of course, Jared's father Charles Kushner got a pardon from Donald Trump and is now the U.S. ambassador to Paris.
Yeah,
I mean, when Jared was
and
growing up, he was going to see his father in jail at the weekends.
Right. And remember, so his father went to jail for setting up I think his brother-in-law with a prostitute, and then he went to jail, and at that point, actually, then Jared took over the business as a young man.
And Jared has a brother called Josh Kushner, also married to a high-profile model in his case. I mean, the two Kushner brothers are pretty fascinating, both good-looking, both charming. People love to be around them. They have the sort of, they seem to have shared their father's sleaze.
I would disagree with that. I mean, Josh, I think some people like to be around. Nobody likes to be around Jared.
Okay, go on.
Well, he's first thing, he has no social presence at all.
You described him in your book. I came across this afternoon. You described him in your book, Too Famous, as a quivering filament, which reminded me of a filament in a light bulb that's slightly. You're not quite sure if it's on or off. It's flickering. It's flickering.
Yeah, no. And actually, the Times, one long interview I did with him, his hand shook through the whole interview. He's cold. He's haughty. He's arrogant. He's entitled. He's unpleasant. He's personally unpleasant. You would not want to be with him, and he was certainly within the first Trump White House among the more disliked, or if you will, even hated figures. Having said that, you also have to note that he's perhaps the only true survivor of the first Trump White House.
Well, and he had a couple of near misses, didn't he? I mean, he certainly had to testify a couple of times.
Oh, no. I think it became for him a kind of risk-reward situation. He recognized that being in the White House could be monetized, and he has monetized it. When he got out of the White House, he's monetized this at a level we have never before seen from anyone in the White House, but also recognizing a high level of risk. Within the White House, they basically say he can Bigfoot anyone. If Jared chooses to step in, move aside. And in fact, and very important to note that Susie Wiles, who is the chief of staff, was put into that job directly and personally by Jared Kushner.